On a rain-soaked night in the neon-lit streets of the city, Keanu Reeves exits a quiet diner, the scent of coffee still lingering in the air. The streets glisten under the dim glow of streetlights, a faint mist rising from the pavement like ghostly tendrils reaching for the sky. His boots splash softly against the wet asphalt as he approaches his black Mustang, its sleek frame reflecting the kaleidoscope of lights from nearby signs advertising cheap motels and all-night bars. The distant hum of the city, a symphony of car horns, muffled conversations, and the occasional siren, wraps around him like a familiar cloak. Then, cutting through the night like a jagged blade, comes a piercing scream from a nearby alley. Keanu's sharp eyes lock onto the source. A young girl, no older than 20, stands cornered against a graffiti-stained wall, her soaked hoodie clinging to her trembling frame. A group of taxi drivers surrounds her, the yellow cabs park haphazardly at the alley's mouth like a pack of wolves guarding their prey. Their laughter is harsh, guttural, slicing through the damp air. One of them, a stocky man with a crooked grin and a cigarette dangling from his lips, grabs her wrist. "Come on, sweetheart," he sneers, his voice dripping with menace. "Don't make this difficult." Keanu's voice cuts through the tension like a blade tempered in ice. She said no. The words are soft, almost a whisper, yet they carry an unshakable authority that makes the air feel heavier. The driver's tone, their amusement morphing into mockery as they size him up. The leader, a wiry man with a scar tracing his jawline, steps forward, puffing out his chest. "And who's gonna stop us? You?" Keanu doesn't flinch. He doesn't raise his voice or ball his fists. Instead, he steps forward, his movements deliberate, his presence radiating a quiet power that seems to bend the shadows around him. A cold breeze whips through the alley, rustling the hem of his long coat as he narrows his gaze. The drivers falter, their bravado unraveling under the weight of his stare. It's not aggression they see in his eyes. It's certainty, a promise that this will not end well for them if they push further. Keanu reaches into his pocket and pulls out his phone, holding it up with a steady hand. "Should I call the police?" he says calmly, "or will you let her go?" The silence stretches taut, a wire ready to snap. The drivers exchange nervous glances, their earlier confidence dissolving like mist in sunlight. The leader clenches his jaw, his fingers twitching as if itching for a fight, but something in Keanu's unflinching demeanor holds him back. One of them scoffs, muttering a curse under his breath, and releases the girl's wrist. She stumbles back, her breath hitching as she presses herself against the wall, her wide, fearful eyes darting to Keanu. He gestures to her with a subtle nod, his voice steady as stone. "Come on, let's get out of here." They step onto the main street, the girl trailing close behind him, her sneakers slapping against the wet pavement. The distant sound of revving engines rumbles through the air, and headlights flicker on, casting long, menacing beams across the road. More taxis pull up, their drivers stepping out to glare at Keanu, their cars forming an unspoken barricade. The girl grips his arm, her fist surging back like a tide. Keanu exhales slowly, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth, barely visible under the flickering glow of a streetlight. He pulls out his phone again, his fingers gliding over the screen with practiced ease. "You know," he says, his tone casual yet edged with warning, "taxis are supposed to take people home, not hunt them down." A heavy silence falls, the only sound the patter of rain against metal and concrete. The drivers hesitate, their bravado fraying at the edges. A ringing phone pierces the stillness. One of them answers, his face paling as he listens, his posture stiffening like a man caught in a trap. He nods quickly, signaling to the others with a sharp gesture. Without a word, the taxis peel away, their engines humming as they vanish into the labyrinth of the city's streets. Keanu watches them go, his expression unreadable, a mask of calm carved from years of facing the world's chaos. He turns to the girl, softening his voice. "Do you need a ride?" She nods, still shaken but clinging to the lifeline he offers. Keanu opens the passenger door of his Mustang, the rich scent of leather wafting out as she slides in. The engine roars to life, a deep, guttural sound that blends with the city's distant echoes as he drives her home, the rain streaking across the windshield like tears. The aftermath. The next morning, the city feels different, as if the night's events had sent ripples through its veins. Taxi drivers, once brash and predatory, move with a newfound caution. Their radios crackle with hush warnings. Keep it clean today. Words out. He's watching. No one names him, but they all know who it is. Keanu Reeves, the man whose quiet intervention had turned a single alleyway confrontation into a whispered legend overnight. The girl, whose name is MIA, wakes in her small apartment, the events of a night replaying in her mind like a film reel stuck on loop. She's safe now, thanks to him, but the terror lingers, a shadow she can't shake. She'd heard of Keanu Reeves before. Everyone had. The Hollywood star with a heart of gold, the man who gave away millions and rode the subway like any other commuter. But seeing him in that alley, standing between her and danger with nothing but his presence and a phone, had transformed him from a distant icon into something real, something tangible. She wanted to thank him, to understand him, but is already gone, swallowed by the city's sprawl. Meanwhile, the taxi drivers convene in a dimly lit garage on the edge of town, their usual swagger replaced by unease. The leader from the alley, a man named Vince, paces before his crew, his scarred jaw tight with tension. His phone buzzes, and he answers it with a scowl that quickly fades to dread. The voice on the other end is calm, measured, but it carries the weight of a guillotine. "We heard what happened last night. You're lucky he didn't take things further. Next time, there won't be a warning." The line goes dead, leaving Vince in a cold sweat. He turns to his men, his voice low and urgent. "Lay low. Change your ways. If this gets back to him, or whoever is got listening, we're done." A silent protector, Keanu doesn't seek the spotlight. He never has. He moves through the city like a phantom, blending into the crowds of weary workers and late-night wanderers. By day, he's just another face, sipping coffee at a corner booth, tipping generously, exchanging quiet words with a waitress who's seen too much. By night, he walks the streets, his sharp eyes scanning the shadows for signs of trouble. He doesn't carry a weapon, doesn't wear a badge, but his presence alone is enough to shift the air, to make the predators hesitate. The stories begin to spread, not through headlines or viral posts, but through the city's undercurrent, bartenders swapping tales over chip mugs, cabbies murmuring over radios, pedestrians whispering to friends. A woman swears she saw him break up a fight outside a dive bar, his calm voice diffusing the violence before it could erupt. A bodega owner claims he chased off a group of loiterers harassing his customers, vanishing before anyone could thank him. An old man, struggling with his groceries near a busy intersection, nearly stumbles into traffic, until a strong hand steadies him. He looks up into Keanu's familiar face, weathered yet kind. "Be careful," Keanu says softly before melting back into the crowd. MIA, meanwhile, can't let it go. The fear from that night fuels her, transforming into a quiet resolve. She starts asking around, piecing together the fragments of Keanu's movements, but as a ghost, always one step ahead, never lingering. Inspired by his courage, she begins volunteering with a local nonprofit aimed at improving street safety, her voice growing steadier as she shares her story. She pushes for reforms in the taxi industry, better vetting, stricter regulations, panic buttons in every cab. She never sees Keanu again, but she feels his influence, a silent encouragement urging her forward. The ripple effect. Months pass, and the city begins to change. Taxi drivers, once a law unto themselves, adopt a new code. Polished shoes, polite nods, doors held open for passengers. Crime rates dip in the neighborhoods Keanu frequents, a subtle shift no one can fully explain. People walk home a little less afraid, their steps lighter under the neon glow. The underworld takes note, too. Whispers circulate about a new player, someone pulling strings from the shadows, ensuring justice where the law falters. No one knows who, or what, he is, but the name Reeve begins to carry weight, a talisman against the dark. One evening, Keanu passes a row of taxis idling near a bustling intersection. A driver, a burly man with a shaved head, glances his way. There's no hostility in his eyes, no trace of the old arrogance, only respect, tinged with something like gratitude. Keanu gives a small nod, and the driver nods back before turning to his next fare, a tired nurse climbing in after a long shift. But the story doesn't end there. In a high-rise office overlooking the city, a man in a tailored suit stares out at the twinkling lights, his fingers drumming against a glass of scotch. His name is Victor Callahan, a power broker with ties to every shadow the city hides: drugs, extortion, human trafficking. He's heard the rumors, the tales of a lone figure disrupting his carefully laid plans. Reeves, he mutters, the name tasting bitter on his tongue. He doesn't know how one man, a washed-up actor, no less, could unsettle his empire, but he feels a tremor, the cracks forming in his foundation. Callahan calls a meeting, gathering his lieutenants in a smoke-filled room. Find him, he orders, his voice a low growl. I want to know who he is, what he wants, and how to stop him. His men nod, but there's unease in their eyes. They've heard the stories, too, how Keanu faced down a dozen cabs with nothing but a phone, how he moves through the city like he owns its secrets. The hunt begins, but Keanu remains elusive, a specter slipping through their grasp. The Guardians resolve. Late one night, Keanu stands on a rooftop, the city sprawling beneath him like a living thing, beautiful, broken, and restless. The wind tugs at his coat, carrying the distant wail of a siren and the murmur of life below. He doesn't wear a cape or a mask, doesn't call himself a hero. He's just a man who's seen too much loss, too much pain, and decided to do something about it. His wife, his child, ghosts of a past he can't reclaim, drive him forward, their memory a quiet fire in his chest. Down below, a woman hurries through an empty lot, her heels clicking against the pavement. Two figures peel from the shadows, their intent clear. Keanu's eyes narrow, and is gone, descending the fire escape with the grace of a panther. By the time the would-be attackers close in, his air, his voice low, his stance unyielding. Walk away. They don't, and for the first time, he moves, swift, precise, a blur of controlled force that leaves them groaning on the ground. The woman stays, stunned, before he offers her his hand. You're safe now, he says, and then is gone again, vanishing into the night. The city doesn't know it yet, but Keanu Reeves has become its heartbeat, a silent promise that justice will endure, that kindness can cut deeper than any blade. Callahan's men search, the underworld trembles, and Mia's reforms gain traction, but Keanu keeps moving, his work never finished. Under the neon lights, he walks alone, a legend forged not in fame, but in the quiet strength of a man who refuses to look away.